Hello. Thank you for watching my video. Today I'm going to talk about my foundation mix as well as the concealer that I use, because I just made a video with my application of my makeup, and so now I want to kind of get into a little bit more detail, because I didn't want to take up that video too much, of what it is exactly that I use for those two things, just because they're not exactly just plain. So this one is first, so it'll be quicker. This is my foundation that I use. This is just a large jar that I mix it in. You can see what it looks like there. And what I do for this is I take Everyday Minerals Golden Fair Foundation in Original Glow, which is the perfect match for me. But that foundation alone is a little bit dewy, it's a little bit glowy. I want a look that's just slightly less without being too matte, because I do want it to look really natural, and I do want very sheer coverage. And so I used that foundation, and then I found another foundation, this Pampered formula from Meow, and I had a little bit more trouble finding my color, so I actually used two that I mixed together, called Frisky Abyssinian and Sleek Charteau. And I find that those two mixed together are the closest that I can get to that Golden Fair color that matches me perfectly. And so I use equal parts of the Meow foundation and the Everyday Minerals foundation, and I just put it in this jar. Sometimes it's easy to use like just a little spoon or something like that, just to scoop it out, and you can count the number of spoons. And so equal parts, and I mix it together. Just by shaking it, or you can kind of swirl it with a spoon, but I still like to shake it. And that's all. It's very simple, and the reason that I do that mix is this Meow formula is very, very light coverage, and I did want a little bit more coverage than that, and the Everyday Minerals definitely gives me more coverage. The Original Glow is probably one of their lighter coverage formulas, so you're still staying in a very light coverage area, and this is very powdery and very matte, while the Original Glow is just a smidge more creamy. And so by mixing the two of those together, I get a more natural finish and a more natural formula that I like, while still keeping it very light coverage, because if you watched my makeup application video, I like to mix up my concealer and use that to conceal before I do my foundation, and that's why I prefer a lighter coverage foundation, even though it takes more time to do it that way versus just put heavy foundation all over. But I prefer the lighter feel on my face, and also my pores get clogged really easily, so I try to just keep things that I put all over my face to a minimum. And next I want to talk about the concealer that I use, which isn't really a concealer, it's just a foundation. It's Everyday Minerals Semi-Matte Foundation, and you can see I've hit pan there. So what I do is I just scoop that in this little jar that I have. It's a mini-sized jar from Everyday Minerals that only the large-size eyeshadows come now in this jar. They've got rid of this jar for their other products. And so just scoop a little bit of that in, then I mix it with alcohol. And this is just 70% rubbing alcohol, and the higher the percentage of alcohol the better, because it's going to evaporate a lot quicker. So the 70% is kind of on the lower side. If you can find in the 90s, that would be great. It would just be quicker for you. Like, I had to wait a couple of days for this to really dry. And the rest of the percentage is water, which is why it takes longer. So this is 30% water. And what you could do is you could just mix that together. It doesn't really matter if you use a little bit too much of the alcohol and it's just very, very watery, very runny. That's okay, because it'll all evaporate. And what I do after I mix it, if you put your jar on the countertop and you just kind of tap it just like that against the countertop, it'll help everything settle down if you have things on the edge. And what I did last time with this particular one that I made is I added just a drop, a tiny little drop of this glycerin. I got both of these products from CVS, as you can see. They're CVS brand. And what I noticed the glycerin does to the formula of this is it makes it a little bit more bound together more tightly. So what I find is when I touch this, I get some product, but it doesn't just fly everywhere. It's not very powdery, which is what it is when I use just the alcohol. And that has its pluses and minuses. It's maybe a little bit more messy, but it's also easier. You just touch it and it comes right onto your brush if you're using just the alcohol. So it's really whatever you prefer, whether you want it to come off really easily or whether you want it, I mean, it's still very soft and still comes off very easily. But also another thing keep in mind is you are adding an additional ingredient. So if your skin is very finicky, very breakout prone, maybe you don't like glycerin, maybe you've used it in other products, you can just really easily skip that step, because if all you use is alcohol, it evaporates, and so all that you're left with is just pretty much your foundation just kind of stuck together like this, and like this little cake. So the nice thing about that is you not have to worry about it breaking out because there's extra things in there. So that's what I use for my concealer, and that's what I use for my foundation. So thank you for watching.